Not long ago, I met up for coffee with an old friend. I was pretty excited, telling him about a project I have been really passionate about. But every time I was in the middle of speaking, he would pick up his phone and start scrolling. At one point, I had only said a few sentences when he suddenly cut me off and said, "Oh, hey, I saw this shirt on sale yesterday. It actually looks pretty nice." My story, which I had not even finished yet, suddenly got switched to something completely different. In that moment, I felt pretty awkward. It was like I was trying to have a serious conversation, but the person sitting across from me did not really care. Even though I tried to explain things more clearly, hoping that if I made it more interesting, he would pay attention, nothing really changed. He just nodded a couple of times, then went right back to looking at his phone. That night, I kept thinking about it. Why was he being so disrespectful to me? But later on, I realized something. We cannot force someone to respect us. The only thing we can do is stop the behaviors that make it easy for others to look down on us. What exactly does that mean? I am going to walk you through it in today's video. Now, let's get started. No one is obligated to respect you. A lot of people tend to think, if I am kind to them, they should be kind to me, right? But in reality, in social relationships, there is no rule that forces others to respect you. You cannot use words to pressure them. You cannot use kindness to convince them. And you cannot explain things in a way that suddenly makes them see you differently. For example, you might have a friend who is always 30 minutes late every time you meet. Each time you stand there waiting under the hot sun, feeling frustrated. But the moment they finally show up, you just give an awkward smile and say, "It is okay, just try to be on time next time." You believe that your patience and gentle reminder will make them respect your time more. But in reality, the opposite happens. They start to get used to it, and their brain automatically registers that your time is not that valuable. No matter how late they are, you will still be there waiting. That is the moment when respect slowly begins to disappear. In psychology, this kind of situation is similar to a process called reverse conditioning. When kindness does not come with clear boundaries, it can unintentionally lower the value of the person who is giving it. According to the principle of operant conditioning in psychology, people tend to repeat actions that do not meet resistance or do not lead to negative consequences. When a disrespectful behavior happens but is still met with a gentle response, the other person's brain unconsciously records that behavior as safe. Your leniency, in this case, acts like a hidden reward, making them feel no need to adjust their behavior in the future. On top of that, people often assign value based on boundaries and scarcity. Things that have clear limits tend to be valued more. When you continuously sacrifice your time, your emotions, or your comfort without setting boundaries, you are unintentionally sending a signal that your value is easy to access and does not need to be protected. Over time, when personal boundaries are not clearly expressed through your actions and reactions, respect in the relationship gradually declines. The other person no longer sees you as someone with limits that need to be respected. Instead, they get used to you always being willing to give in. That is why, in many situations, a loss of respect does not necessarily come from someone intentionally looking down on you. It often comes from the fact that personal boundaries are not clearly expressed in how you respond and handle situations. 4 ways to deal with people who disrespect you. Method 1. Do not over-explain your decisions. One behavior that makes others take you less seriously, which many people do not even notice, is over-explaining every decision they make. We often do this because we think that if we explain more clearly and give more reasons, others will understand and respect us more. But in many situations, the opposite actually happens. When you constantly explain, justify, or try to prove that your decision is reasonable, you are unintentionally putting yourself in a position where you are asking for approval or validation from others. In communication psychology, this behavior is often seen as a signal of uncertainty in your own decision. When others sense that, they tend to keep questioning you, keep challenging you, and gradually feel like they have the right to judge your choices. You can imagine this. A friend asks you, "Why did you quit that job?" If you start giving a long explanation about the environment, the pressure, the salary not being right, your future plans, and so on, you are unintentionally opening the door to a debate. The other person might start analyzing your decision more closely and say things like, "But that company was good. Is it too risky to quit your job in times like this?" At that point, the conversation shifts from sharing to being judged. On the other hand, people who set clear boundaries tend to respond more directly. "I felt like it was the right decision for me. I thought about it very carefully." And they stop there. They do not try to convince everyone to understand or agree with their choices. According to behavioral psychology insights, this kind of brevity is a way of asserting autonomy. It shows that you are the one responsible for and in control of your own life. When you do not over-explain, you are quietly communicating that the decision belongs to you, and you do not need to present a detailed justification just to live your life the way you want. In communication, stopping the habit of over-explaining also means you stop negotiating your self-worth. That sense of decisiveness sends a clear message. This is my decision, and it stands. That calm confidence is what makes others start to see you differently. When you are no longer seeking approval from the outside, people around you begin to understand that your decisions are already well considered and deserve respect. Method 2. Accept the possibility of losing a relationship. In any relationship, if you want others to truly respect you, you have to be brave enough to accept that the relationship might come to an end. A lot of us stay stuck in frustration when we are treated badly, but we do not dare to push back because we are afraid the other person might get upset or leave us. But here is the truth. When you are not willing to walk away even when you are hurt, you are unintentionally sending a message that says, "No matter how badly you treat me, I am never going to leave." That kind of loyalty takes away any reason for the other person to treat you well. They understand that your boundaries are just words, because in the end, you are still going to stay. I learned this the hard way from a close friend I had since middle school. For years, he always felt entitled to judge my life. No matter what I did, he criticized it. No matter what decision I made, he said it was wrong. I never received a single word of support from him, only harsh criticism disguised as honest advice. Eventually, I decided to stop. I accepted losing a longtime friend in order to protect my own self-respect. It hurt a lot, but it was the only way for me to stop being put down. This kind of action works when dealing with people who disrespect you because people naturally tend to push boundaries until they face a real consequence. If you only complain but still stay, the other person does not lose anything. But when you are no longer there, they lose the connection and the energy you bring. Your absence becomes the strongest wake-up call that forces them to rethink your value. More importantly, being willing to let go is also how you establish an internal locus of control. You show that your value does not depend on anyone else's approval, and that you are strong enough to live well without a toxic relationship. When you are no longer afraid of losing them, the control shifts entirely to you. That willingness to walk away is what creates real presence and authority, and it is what makes others learn to treat you with respect. So the boundaries you set are actually there to keep the people who truly respect you. When you are willing to leave unhealthy relationships, you are also creating space for healthier, more respectful ones to enter your life. Method 3. Use the power of silence. In many situations, our natural reaction when we feel disrespected is to respond immediately. You want to explain, argue, or prove that you are not wrong. But sometimes, that quick reaction actually makes things worse because you are stepping right into the conflict the other person created. During a conversation at the office, I was sharing an idea when someone interrupted me in a sarcastic tone and said, "Come on, everyone already knows that." My first instinct was to immediately explain myself, to point out that he had misunderstood what I was saying. But instead of reacting right away, I paused for a few seconds and stayed silent, looking straight at him without saying anything. The whole room suddenly went quiet. No one spoke, but the person who interrupted me was the one who became uncomfortable, stumbling over his words to break the silence. After that moment, he almost never interrupted me again. That was when I realized something. His interruption was actually designed to provoke a reaction. Behaviors like that often feed on frustration, arguments, or emotional responses from others. When I did not react in that way, I unintentionally took away what he was looking for. The mechanism behind this silence is known in behavioral psychology as extinction. People often act in a hostile way, expecting a reaction from their target, whether it is anger, confusion, or explanation. When you stay silent, you cut off that reward. Over time, the other person realizes that attacking you is useless and brings no result, and the disrespectful behavior gradually fades away. On top of that, silence creates a pause in the conversation, something often called the power of the pause. That moment sends a signal that you have strong emotional control and that the other person's words are not powerful enough to shake your composure. In any relationship, the person who is less emotionally affected tends to hold the real power. When you choose not to react, you are quietly stating, "What you said is not worth my response." Because of that, respect from others sometimes comes from your calmness and how you choose to respond. There are moments when not responding at all is exactly what makes others see you with more respect. Method 4. Ask yourself if you truly respect yourself. Have you ever asked yourself, "Do I actually respect myself?" This is a difficult question for many people. It is always easier to see other people's mistakes than to look at how we are treating ourselves. We often ask, "Why are they treating me this way?" but rarely stop to ask, "How am I treating myself?" In reality, the way others treat you often reflects how you treat yourself. When you constantly ignore your own feelings, accept things that make you uncomfortable, or always put other people's needs before your own values, you are unintentionally sending a signal that your boundaries can be ignored. A lack of respect often does not start with others. It starts in the moments when we overlook ourselves. For example, when you are exhausted, but still take on more work just because you are afraid of disappointing someone. Or when you feel disrespected in a conversation, but still smile it off just to keep the peace. Small actions like these, when repeated over time, train others to place their needs above your feelings. If deep down you feel like you have to please others to be liked, you are more likely to end up in relationships where your needs and emotions are overlooked. When someone does not truly believe in their own value, they often lack the stability to protect their boundaries. They worry that if they become a little more firm, if they say no or express their opinions clearly, others will no longer value them, and that fear keeps them accepting behaviors that hurt them. Over time, this creates a cycle. The less self-respect you have, the more likely you are to be disrespected. And the more you are disrespected, the more your self-respect declines. In relationships, people often observe how you treat yourself to decide how much respect to give you. If you constantly criticize yourself, hesitate, and do not value your own time or emotions, others will unconsciously follow that pattern. On the other hand, when you have strong self-respect, you project an energy that tells others, "This is someone with principles. I cannot cross their boundaries carelessly." That is why respect from others usually starts with how you treat yourself. When you keep promises to yourself, say no to things that drain you, and protect your boundaries, everything around you begins to change. People who do not respect you will naturally drift away, while those who truly value you will stay. In the end, respect from others comes from how you communicate, how you respond, and most importantly, how you treat yourself. When you maintain clear boundaries, avoid over-explaining, are willing to walk away from disrespectful relationships, and truly value yourself, the way others see you will gradually change. Respect always starts from within. When you value yourself, others will learn to treat you with the same level of respect. And if you are struggling with relationships or dealing with psychological challenges you do not fully understand yet, feel free to share in the comments below. There is a good chance your story is something many others are going through as well. We can break down and work through those issues together in future videos.